The wedding hall, the chandeliers glittered above me like frozen tears. The hall was full of laughter, glasses clinking, the hum of conversations and the music that only weddings seem to play. Half joy, half nostalgia. My son Daniel looked handsome in his suit, his arm proudly linked with his new bride Clara. I had imagined this day since he was a little boy who used to hide behind my skirts. I sat beside my husband Robert, 40 years together. His hand was on the table close enough to touch, but somehow I felt a distance, a chill I couldn't name. I smiled, hiding it. Weddings are no place for uneasy hearts. When the music paused for speeches, I straightened my shawl and prepared to dab my tears during the toast. I didn't know that before the night ended, my world would be split apart like crystal striking marble. A toast of goodbye. Robert stood up before anyone could call him. The crowd hushed, waiting for the proud father to speak. I looked up, expecting his familiar humor, his soft wit. Instead, his voice came out strange, tutty but heavy. He began with, "Daniel, I've watched you grow into a man any father would be proud of," he said. His smile was practiced, polite. Then his eyes shifted toward me. "And to my wife," he continued, pausing. "We have shared many years together, and tonight, in front of everyone, I need to speak honestly. Because life is short, and truth deserves its place, even in uncomfortable moments." I felt something grip my stomach. The air stilled. "I want everyone to know," he said, "this is the end for us. I've found someone new." The sound that escaped my throat wasn't human. It was a gasp that never became a scream. The room fell utterly silent. Forks froze mid-air. Daniel stood, his face pale. I couldn't look at him. My husband, no, this stranger beside me, kept speaking as if reading a prepared speech. The stranger beside me. I don't remember much of the next few minutes. A blur of hands, murmurs, and my son's voice saying, "Dad, what are you doing?" I remember the music stopping and someone dropping a glass. Robert didn't meet my eyes. He looked above me, beyond me. "It's better this way," he said softly, as if comforting a child. "We haven't been happy for years." My heart pounded against my ribs. I wanted to say something, anything, but words died in my throat. I had grown old believing in partnership, in weathering storms together. I had been wrong. Daniel helped me stand. The hall seemed to tilt, lights spinning. Clara whispered, "Should we stop this?" I heard whispers from the guests, pity, disbelief, curiosity. I walked out without my purse, without my shawl. Just my trembling hands and the sound of my own heart breaking. The parking lot, rain outside. It was raining. The kind of soft drizzle that soaks through before you realize. I stood there, hair damp, mascara running, watching the lights of the hall blur through the water. 40 years, gone between two breaths. I leaned against the car, my knees weak. Daniel came after me, jacket in hand. "Mom, I'm so sorry," he whispered, wrapping it around my shoulders. "It's not your fault," I said. "Go," my voice cracked. "Go back, it's your wedding day." He shook his head, eyes wet. "I can't just leave you. You must," I said, forcing a smile that tasted of salt. "You'll remember this night for the rest of your life. Don't let my pain stain it." He didn't move for a long time. The rain kept falling, soft and endless. Finally he went back inside, torn between duty and love. I sat in the car alone, staring at the ring on my finger. It gleamed faintly under the streetlight, mocking me. The empty house. When I entered our home later that night, everything looked exactly the same. The framed photos, the slippers by the door, the half-finished crossword on the coffee table. Only the silence had changed. I wandered through the rooms like a ghost. The kitchen smelled of the lavender candle I'd lit before we left, a scent that now felt cruel. His jacket still hung by the door. I touched it, inhaling what was left of him. His aftershave, his warmth, his lies. On the refrigerator was a note written earlier that week: "Don't forget to pick up the cake samples." Beneath it, another in his handwriting, dated that morning: "We'll talk tonight." He had planned this, not an accident, a public execution of a marriage. I sat on the edge of our bed until dawn, the wedding invitation still on the dresser beside me. It read, "Together with their families, Daniel and Clara invite you to celebrate their love." Family. The word echoed hollow in my mind. The morning after, I didn't sleep. The gray light of dawn crept across the curtains like a slow confession. Every corner of the room whispered of him, the dent in the pillow, the cup still on the nightstand. "Mom, are you okay?" I wanted to lie, to protect him. "I'm fine," I said. "How's Clara?" He hesitated. "She's worried. Everyone's talking." "Then don't talk," I whispered. "Start your life, Daniel. Forget what happened." When the call ended, I pressed the phone to my chest. The silence that followed was heavier than words. The letter 2 days later, a courier came with an envelope. His handwriting again. "I'm sorry for the way it happened. Her name is Lillian. We didn't mean to hurt you." Lillian, the name tasted like metal. He'd signed it with a flourish as if decades of marriage could be summarized in a single apology. I folded the letter, then unfolded it again. There was a trembling inside me that refused to settle. I tore the paper slowly, piece by piece, until it became white confetti falling at my feet. The visit. Daniel came that weekend, carrying groceries, pretending it was a casual visit. He looked around the kitchen, noticing what I had noticed for years: the 2 coffee cups, one unused. "Mum," he said quietly, "Dad's moving in with her, near the lake." I nodded. He waited for me to cry. I didn't. I had done enough of that. Instead, I opened the window. The wind carried the faint smell of rain and earth. "You know, Daniel," I said, "love isn't always gentle. Sometimes it's a knife you polish yourself." He didn't answer. He just held my hand until the kettle whistled. The box in the closet. A week later, I went through the closet. Old suits, faded dresses, a box labeled anniversary. Inside were letters, photos. A pressed rose from our first date. For the first time, I looked at those things without nostalgia. They were relics from a world that no longer existed. I packed the box and took it to the attic. As I climbed the ladder, my knees shook, but not from weakness, from the weight of letting go. The grocery store encounter. I saw them together for the first time in the produce aisle. He looked older, smaller somehow, like guilt had carved his shoulders down. She was younger, with careful makeup and nervous eyes. Our carts met at the corner. "Margaret," he said, my name breaking slightly. "Robert." We stood between apples and oranges, silent. Then he said, "You look well." I almost laughed. "I'm learning." I left my cart there and walked out, heart pounding, air sharp in my lungs. Outside, I sat on a bench shaking. The sky was too blue for grief. Sunday service at church. That Sunday the hymn sounded hollow. Faces turned toward me with pity disguised as prayer. I forced myself to stand to sing. The words about forgiveness caught in my throat. Afterward, the pastor touched my shoulder. "Sometimes," he said, "God removes people to see how strong we are alone." I nodded, though I didn't feel strong. Only hollow. Photographs. Daniel sent photos from his honeymoon. Sunlight, smiles, ocean. I scrolled through them, my reflection faint in the screen. For a moment I envied their unbroken hearts. Then I whispered a blessing. Love should be pure at least once in every family. The dinner invitation. A month later, Clara invited me for dinner. "We'll want you to feel part of us," she said. I went. The table was warm with laughter. Daniel carved the roast. I tried to join in. Then Clara touched my arm gently. "Called," she said softly. "Your husband. He asked how you were." My fork stopped midair. "Tell him," I said, "that I'm breathing. That's enough." Letters never sent. I started writing letters to him. Not to send, just to speak the unsaid. "You broke something sacred," I wrote, "but I still set a plate for you in my mind." Each letter ended the same. "I wish you peace even if I never find mine." The hospital room. Winter came. Daniel called again. His father had fallen ill. I hesitated, then went. He was pale, fragile, tubes running like roots across his body. Lillian sat quietly in the corner. When he opened his eyes, he whispered, "You came." "I didn't come for forgiveness," I said. "I came because 40 years don't vanish." A tear slid down his cheek. I reached out, wiped it away. That was the first time I touched him since the wedding. The silence after he passed away 3 days later. Daniel called me at dawn. I didn't cry immediately. Grief arrived slowly like evening fog. At the funeral I stood apart, listening to the minister's words about love and endurance. I thought of endurance. How it sometimes looks like standing alone at a graveside, heart still beating. The will. The lawyer read the will in a small office. He had left the house to Daniel and a modest fund for me. Lillian received nothing but jewelry he'd once given her. When she realized, she turned toward me, tears in her eyes. "I never meant to destroy you," she whispered. "You didn't," I said. "He did." Packing the past, I moved into a smaller home by the river. Fewer rooms, fewer memories. Each box I unpacked was a reckoning: photographs, dishes, the clock that had ticked through our marriage. I kept only what I loved. The quilt I'd sewn myself, Daniel's baby shoes, my mother's Bible. The rest I gave away. The river bench. Every evening, I walked to the river. I watched the water move, never still, never backward. Sometimes I talked to him in my head. Sometimes I just listened. One evening Daniel joined me. We sat in silence until he said, "Mom, do you miss him?" "I miss who he used to be," I said, "not who he became." Daniel's apology. Months later, Daniel broke down. "I should have stopped him that night," he said. "You couldn't," I told him. "People stop themselves. Or they don't." He cried against my shoulder like a child again. For the first time in a long while I felt something close to peace. Not forgiveness but acceptance. Lillian's visit. A year passed. Lillian came to see me, older, wary. "He talked about you every near the end," she said. I poured her tea. "Then he must have had a lot to regret." We sat quietly, two women bound by the same wound. When she left, I realized I no longer hated her. Pity had replaced anger. The box by the fire. One cold evening, I found the box again. The one from our closet. I opened it slowly. Inside were the remains of a life, photographs curling at the edges. A letter from our honeymoon. I burned them in the fireplace, watching the smoke curl upward. Goodbye, Robert, I whispered. You took half my heart. But I'm still here. The garden. Spring returned. I planted roses in the backyard, red for love, white for peace. When the first bloom opened, I touched its petals and thought, so much pain can still create beauty. The neighbors waved, the world went on turning. The nearer sometimes I catch my reflection and see a different woman. Older, yes, but unbroken. I no longer wear my wedding ring. The skin beneath it has healed, though the mark remains faint, like a whisper of what was. That's the thing about scars, they tell you you've lived. Unfiltered tears. Tonight, I sit by the window with a cup of tea. The city hums softly outside. I think of that night, the wedding, the toast, the shattering of everything I knew. If I close my eyes, I can still hear the gasps, feel the rain, taste the salt of my own tears. But I'm still here. I have learned that heartbreak doesn't always end, it simply changes shape, and somewhere inside that ache, life keeps whispering, breathe again. The end. Grandma's unfiltered tears.